All right, good afternoon. This is a subcommittee, City Council Subcommittee on Art and Culture, scheduled for today, July 27 at 5:30. This is in response to a motions by Councilor Samaras, and I believe it's myself, and with the support of all the council vote to support the Senate Bill number 2246, an act to rebuild the Commonwealth cultural future that was introduced by Senators Ed Kennedy and his colleague. Senator Kennedy's welcome, and James Ostis, who is the staff of Senator Kennedy's, welcome, and also Sarah Bogosian. She's a commissioner, I believe, that you appoint her to. So we'll hear from her after we hear from you, Senator. So with me, okay, with me we have City Councilor Bill Samaras and City Councilor Rita Murcia. Mr. Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Chairman Noon?
Here.
Councilor Murcia?
Here.
Councilor Samaras?
Here.
3 present.
With no objection from my colleague, maybe we can start having Senator Kennedy give an overview of his bill and, an update on this as well. So, Senator Kennedy, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, let me just begin. I think, as many of you know, I am the Senate Chair of Tourism, Arts, and Cultural Development. I've been that for 2 terms now. And, when I first became the chairman of that committee, everything went fine. There was a restaurant promotion commission that was established. I served on the restaurant promotion commission. The commission finished its work in March of 2020, and almost as soon as it finished its work and the report was filed, we got hit with the pandemic, which threw the whole restaurant industry into chaos, and it was very hard. But so most of the time that I've spent as chairman and with my co-chairman, Carol Viola from Fall River, has been in trying to come up with ways to get cultural arts and tourism to be reestablished. And one of the things that I've done this year is to file a bill which the City Council has endorsed, which is Senate 2256, an act to rebuild the Commonwealth's cultural future. It's also known as the Commonwealth Cultural Act. And that act would call for $200 million to be taken from the federal money that came in and be used for recovery of that segment of our economy. It's been estimated that during the pandemic, we've lost close to $600 million in many jobs due to the pandemic in arts and tourism. And so how we come back from that is something that everybody has been wrestling with. But the bill is well received. It's been endorsed by the Mass Creative Coalition as the preferred vehicle for cultural recovery legislation in Massachusetts. And it currently has 61 sponsors, both in the State Senate and in the House of Representatives. And I very much appreciate this City Council endorsing it through a resolution. And I would only ask that there'll be a hearing before my committee actually in September. And I would only ask that maybe you send that in as written testimony, unless somebody from the City Council can come and testify in person. But at least if you send that in, that would be very helpful. I think that in addition to the $588,000 locally, there's been a lot of uproar. The Merrimack Repertory Theater has been closed since September. The Angkor Dance Troupe, which the chairman I'm sure is very familiar with, has had a tough time, and the Lowell Folk Festival has had to cancel two years in a row. But I think slowly but surely we can be making a comeback. It kind of will depend on this latest surge and how long that lasts and how bad that surge is. So with that, I'll open it up. I've got my legislative director, James Ostis is here, as well as Sarah Bogosian, who both served on the Cultural Recovery Commission, and as you know, is the executive director of the Whistler House.
Mr. Ostis, you want to start first?
Mr. Ostis is just here to assist me. If I don't know the answer, he'll...
I see. So maybe we can ask the director of Whistler House. I was told, I forgot all about it. So, but maybe we can ask Sarah Goshen to say her experience with the commission and what we can do to help here.
Well, first of all, I want to thank Senator Ed Kennedy for his putting together this commission. It was quite knowledgeable for me. I learned so much from it, and there were people from across the state that were quite qualified and who have connections not only and are aware of what's going on statewide with arts and culture, but also nationally. So it was a beautiful group of people from theater organizations that represented museums, the New England Museum Association. I was fortunate enough to represent the Lowell Canal District and the Whistler House Museum of Art, and of course the city of Lowell. But as I said, there were artists on the commission, so it was a wonderful cross-section of people who were able to give their expertise to this report. I wholeheartely endorse it. I feel that based on all of the recommendations that have been made, that hopefully the legislature will in fact endorse it. But I want to tell you just a little bit about what's happened over the past 16 months with the museum here in Lowell, the Whistler House Museum of Art. We closed on March 13th. I had a meeting earlier that week with some of the leaders of the cultural groups in the city, the National Park. They all wanted to remain open, but when Boston was starting to close down, and I had seniors who are my docents who are our volunteers, afraid to come in, I quickly closed on March 13th as well. What happened with that is that we no longer had not only visitors, we were able to not have any activity, no exhibitions, no rentals, no classes, no fundraising events, and it's been like that for the past 16 months. We were not able to digitally hold a lot of these events online. They were not working for us. I think out of our group of people, we also represent the Lowell Art Association Incorporated. We have over 750 to 1,000 members of artists who we represent. They were the hardest hit during this pandemic. Some of these people had to take other jobs in order to stay afloat. They're normally taking other jobs anyway. This industry is not easy to survive in as an artist. What we did was, because they had no exhibits to sell their works, we thought the only way we can help them is to try to help sell their works online. So we started the Artist of the Month program, whereby we select an artist from our organization and we showcase and highlight them. And fortunately enough for all of us, they were able to sell their work. So it kept them going, and we're continuing that program indefinitely now. But there was no place for them to sell their works. We also have what we started as a small works wall, so that's put on our website, and we've been able to sell a lot of those works and help them as well. But as I said, they were one of the hardest groups hit during this pandemic. And a lot of artists, not only visual artists, which is who we represent, but also theatrical artists. A lot of them, what we were finding too is that they were leaving the state because there wasn't enough support for them. Although the Mass Cultural Council has done a wonderful job in grants that they can provide assistance to these artists, it still isn't enough. So that's one of the recommendations that were made throughout this commission. I think the big thing, too, is a lot of our youth programs. We started 8 years ago a wonderful multicultural youth summer art program, which services the entire community, specifically targeting low-income and middle-income students in the area. It's been highly successful. The Boston Globe claimed it as one of the best summer programs in the state. However, because of COVID, we haven't been able to, we didn't conduct the program last year. We did decide about 2 weeks ago to start up the program, but it's sort of an abridged version of the program, so we're trying to conduct a lot of the classes outside because the kids have to wear masks inside, and it's just so prohibitive. You know, it's hard for these little 8-year-olds, 9-year-olds, and we go up to 15 and 16-year-olds. We have 3 groups of age groups that we work with. But because of that, you know, not only youth, but a lot of their family members would come to the exhibition or our events or use the park. A lot of them, we just weren't able to service them the way we normally do, so they've really suffered too. And I'm not sure if any of you are aware of the fact that we are building a brand new arts and cultural center. And we've hired an internationally known architect, Toshiko Mori, of Japanese descent out of New York City. And she's affiliated with Harvard University. We're very, very proud of working with her and having her take on this project. And we started out with monies that were raised. We had $4.25 million, and we really thought that it was going to cover the cost of the program. But because of COVID, that has gone up by 33, sometimes 40% because of the cost of lumber and steel. We're hoping to see those numbers come down, but right now we're suffering with the fact that we need more funds. I've had to hire a capital campaign person. Recommendations that were made to this commission was for the Mass Cultural Council, who, by the way, gave us $200,000, the most they've given at all this year, to us for the project. However, we have to match those funds, so it's more work for us, which we don't mind doing the work, but we just want to make sure that down the road we're going to be able to build this building. This building is very important to not only the Whistler House, but to the city of Lowell. Everything we've tried to do at the Whistler House has been to try to improve everything that is happening in the city of Lowell as far as arts and culture. I think that eventually we will meet the goals we need to build this building. I have meetings that I'm holding up. We're right now in silent phase of the campaign, and I'm writing grants continually. I just finished one today to try to get funds to make sure we, have the funds to build this building. It's very important for the city, and it's in the lowest economically challenged part of the city, which is amazing that we have visitors that come from all over the world, and we're able to service the people in the acre and in the city of Lowell and beyond. But I think it's important to note that that was never part of what we had started out to be. We were an art association. We have a fine collection of works of art. We have a historic home. But the need was there. That's why 8 years ago we started this program, and it has been amazing. So we need to continue that and grow it. That's why we need this new building. So I think because of COVID, the city has suffered. I've seen, just even driving up and down the streets of the city, there's just, I'm hoping that it seems as if things are coming back, but now with this resurgence, who knows? I don't even know if we'll be opening. We were planning on opening this month, but because we wanted to concentrate on the children's art programs, we were thinking September, but if this continues the way we're hearing, we will continue to be closed. Fortunately, we had fundraising that we had done prior to COVID, and we're doing okay, but nothing like what we used to do. We've had no fundraisers. We have done a couple of fundraising appeals, but nothing, in person. And that's when everyone makes money. And by building this building, by attracting more visitors to the city, it will help the economic recovery for the city of Lowell and for that section of the city. So I'm thrilled with, as I said, what the senator has done in putting this program together, along with Representative Carol Fiola. And as I said, I learned quite a bit, and I think we need to move forward. As a city, I think perhaps we can improve communication, because there's all these pockets of groups that are doing things. Prior to coming today, I've been so curious as to who started the painting of these barriers. They look great, but who did it? Who did the coordination of that? I don't even know. And there's also, the Barr Foundation has given funds to the Greater Lowell Community Foundation, and they're starting a program called Mosaic, so you're going to be hearing a little more about that. They're going to have an orientation event at the Whistler House in August. But I think we just need to come together more. I'm not sure the best way of, how we can all do that. But again, I don't know some of the other things that are happening in the city that are art and culture related, and I think it's important for all of us to talk, and get together. And
Thank you.
So that's
Thank you
what
for sharing. Also want to recognize earlier we have Councillor Ronnie Elliott joining us, also Councillor Dan Rook, and not missing Jennifer Mai, staff of Senator Kennedy. Everyone here, all my colleagues agree that COVID-19 has seriously impacted every aspect of our life, and particularly those art and cultural community. That said, let me turn to my colleague, either Councillor Mercier. Go ahead, Councillor Mercier.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to Senator Kennedy. On your House Bill 2246 is associated with money with this bill.
Yes.
Would any of that money ever be earmarked for projects such as Sarah has?
Yes. It's the bill calls for 200 million, but it could be increased from 200 million once it gets to Ways and Means. But the bill calls for 200 million, and it's of the federal money that's come into the Commonwealth, and it's all dedicated to just reviving that whole segment of the economy. So it would be for arts and tourism. And it would be available to Lowell and every other community. Let me just add, too, that, first of all, that Sarah Bogosian was an extremely valuable member of the COVID-19 Cultural Impact Commission, which ended up producing a 79-page report. We'd be happy to get that report to you if you're interested in reading it. But in addition to that legislation, in this year's budget, we approved $21.4 million for the Mass Cultural Commission, and out of that, a little over $100,000 is earmarked to go to the Lowell Cultural Commission. And I believe that they'll start taking grant applications for their money. The Lowell Cultural Commission will, starting in September.
And another thing that bothered me is the fact that, like Sarah was saying, who did the barriers downtown? This is an art community, and yet artists here do something that everybody isn't on the same page with. And I think that we should try to make that better uniformed for if you have a project going on, all the arts, people, they should know, like the people that did the barriers, I don't know. I think
Yeah,
it's
do you
great.
know?
I really enjoy it. Now we're gonna be having designated building spaces where they're gonna do artwork there.
Murals.
We all should get together on the same page to know who's doing what in the city, and I don't think we know that. So one knows something, the other one doesn't know. Everybody should be on the same page. You're right, Sarah, I agree with that.
If I could, Counselor, I was under the understanding that those barriers were all done by local artists, and that they bid for those jobs, which I thought was a great idea to provide some work for local artists during a time when they all had to be struggling. But I'm not sure of that. That's
And I'm not saying that wasn't a good idea, but wouldn't it be nice if everybody knew that?
Yes.
Maybe someone from the Whistler House would have wanted to bid on that, but they didn't know about it. So, I mean, it's a good program. Everybody should know, though. So,
Right.
yeah, thank you.
Councillor Samaras.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. Senator Kennedy, you're talking about 200 million from federal funds, and the money, the 24 million that went to the cultural group, is that from the state?
That's the state budget. The state budget that we just approved, a couple of weeks ago includes 21.4 million for the Mass Cultural Council.
Okay.
And then out of that is another, a little over, it's about $102,000 that will go to the Lowell Cultural Commission. And there's cultural commissions across the Commonwealth, so they'll each get like an amount of money, and then they will be able to award grants with that money to, for whatever reason, whoever wins those grants.
Okay. I mean, when you served as mayor and city councilor here, I think all of us realized that when the city was at its best economically, the art community was doing very well also. And also, when the art community does well, the community, I mean, it's self-fulfilling. Everybody does well.
Well, I think too, Councilor Samaras, that what I've come to realize, and I think most people have come to realize, is that tourism and the arts and culture are just so very, very important to the whole economy and to everybody's well-being. Everybody feels better. And for those of us who have been pretty much, stuck in the house for the past year, to be able to get out has been great. I know that a few weeks ago I went down to the De Catova Museum because they've got an outside sculpture park there as well. And that was a good take, but I think I'm not the only one that's been looking for little activities to do on the weekend because you're somewhat limited as to what you can do. And a big part of that is because venues have shut down. Last year there was, Tanglewood shut down. There's a dance theater called Jacob's Pillow out in Western Mass. That was shut down. Mocha, the big museum out there in North Adams, was shut down. And across the Commonwealth, you see that, and you see it in Lowell. And I think, we're very lucky, and it's really through the, the hard work and dedication of Peter Orcella that we're going to have a concert series at all this year. And I think, as Sarah Bogosian was saying, let's hope that, let's keep our fingers crossed that we'll be able to do that without, given the surge that seems to be upon us.
Well, the thing is, that's what's bothered me. Sarah did bring this up. It seems everywhere I'm going now with different groups are stating that the message that they're getting is that we possibly will be closing down.
Yeah.
I think all of us, I mean, it's not good news that's out there, okay? And the governor's made a statement that he won't close the state, but, whatever. But do you think, there's been some suggestions, do you think from this subcommittee, the possibility that we should suggest to the city manager if she could pull together, we'll say, a meeting in which the art community, business community, the neighborhood communities come together, and, it's some type of meeting that we could possibly have at the senior center or something like that, to talk about, okay, what's the future of Lowell, what's the future of the arts in Lowell? And maybe if they got some information and there was some discussion, I mean, because Councilor Mercier, spoke in a sense of, there's a lot of fine projects going on, but you know what? Everybody doesn't know that it's going on, or how did it start? Where did it come from?
I think that's an excellent idea, especially because, as you know, the city's got, has got extra cash, from the federal government, just as the Commonwealth does. And I'm sure that the local artists in the Lowell area would certainly appreciate that. I think that Sarah Bogosian would appreciate that as well. So I think that's a great idea. I think what you're proposing is that you do something similar to what the Cultural Impact Commission did, but on a smaller, more local scale. And I think that's certainly worthwhile, and I think it would be very much appreciated by everybody.
The thing is, if I could propose a motion, to address that issue, in other words, that second that motion.
Okay. So
That we
what's the motion again, Council?
That we request the city manager pull together a meeting, maybe at a location like the senior center, that follows the lines of the commission, that brings together the art community, business community, neighborhood groups together to talk about the future of Lowell with the arts. And what possibly, in other words, whether the funds that we have could be utilized or we seek other funds. But the whole thing is getting us to work together. as Councilor Mercia said, I mean, you did it very clearly. If everybody knows what's going on, they become partners. If they don't know what's going on, it's a nice idea, but we drive by it and nothing else is said,
Right.
you know?
And if it would be helpful, we'll send that 79-page report so that you can probably use that as a guide, really, in some ways, as you move forward with
Okay.
that idea.
Okay, one more question to,
Sure, go ahead, Councilor.
to,
Before you go on, let me say, Mike, if you do a roll call on that, do I need a roll call on that? Request city managers to put together a meeting of art, cultural businesses and to talk about the future of Lowell, with art?
Want a roll call?
You want a roll call on that?
Chairman Noon,
Yes,
Councilor Samaras,
yes,
Councilor Mercia.
Yes.
3 yeas.
thank you, Councilor Samaras,
Okay.
continue.
Mr. Bogosian, first of all, I want to thank you on behalf of the city council, what you've done with the Whistler House. It's just amazing. I mean, I think if people travel abroad, there's 2 areas in Lowell that people talk about. Do you know about Jack Kerouac, or do you know about the Whistler House? I mean, it's 2 places that have put Lowell on the map. The thing is, we talked about, I mean, how do you see the art community right now? I mean, is it, are we able to go in there and help them at this point? Or have they, sometimes I think that some of these groups have been devastated by this pandemic. I mean, is it fixable?
Speak to the mic, please. Sarah.
I'm so sorry. I'm new to this. You just have to build up their confidence again. It's just been terribly depressing. A lot of these artists weren't able to get out, of course, and then they didn't get the inspiration to do or paint or do anything. It's just been, emotionally, it's been very difficult for everyone, let's face it, but for artists even more so, because they have to go within and try to feel what they're going to be painting. So it was that much more difficult. But I think it's disjointed right now. There's just people all over the place, Western Ave. I try to partner with a lot of these groups, but, it's just been impossible where we're closed and they're open every so often. I think if there's programs that can bring them all together, I'm not sure of what kind of funding there will be available down the road, but I think that if you think back to during the Depression, there was the WPA program where the federal government gave funds to artists to paint it, whether it's a mural or a painting that was put on display for the public to see. We actually have some of those WPA paintings in our collection. They're considered U.S. government property, but if maybe there's a stipend of some sort where we can give artists, even for Merrimack Street, for instance, to the empty storefronts, I think those need to be, somehow livened up. And I think through hiring of artists, someone needs to coordinate it, though. You don't want all different kinds of work. You want something, maybe a theme of some sort, and each window is painted by a particular artist, and you give them a stipend just to help them, get through these difficult times. I think that could just help the overall appearance. To me, you dress the part, all of a sudden, things start happening, It's really amazing. It's just by, cleaning up the Whistler House and putting up shutters and painting it and doing restoration work, I mean, it's made a big difference. So you look the part, and all of a sudden it becomes successful, and people want to pay you, and people want to have their weddings there or their parties there. I think that's what we need to do as a city, and partner with all different groups. This particular report states that they want more collaborations between all different kinds of organizations, and marketing can be done collaboratively to, for less expense to each individual party that's involved. I just think more of that can be done. I think we think too small. If I can tell you what I noticed and what I witnessed through this commission, the things that have been done in Lowell here that haven't been done anyplace else, and they're talking about it, but we've been doing it for, like years, because we have that diversity here of all different types of people. And I think people need to realize too that art is a vehicle, it's a universal language by which we can all come together. And you know, you look at a work of art, it doesn't matter what nationality you are, it doesn't matter what religion you know, practice, it doesn't matter what color you are. It's a work of art. You look at it and you appreciate it on different levels, you know, but it's really very important. And I'm glad to see that the senator and the representative and this commission is aware of the importance of that, because it does help. Overall, economically, it makes life better, but it also makes the city more successful, or any location more successful, so.
Thank
I really think what you're directing towards is that we have to show that the city is as interested in developing.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much.
Just want to also recognize that we have Councilor Conway joining us. You know, while Senator Kennedy, questions to you is that while we request that the managers pull together this diverse group of people, art businesses and nonprofits, to talk about the future of art, what can the citizen of Lowell do to support the legislation that you have filed now or that pending now?
Well, you know, I think that, you know, maybe a local public relations campaign would help and inform citizens as to what's available. And as I say, I'm not the only one that's been looking for things to do on weekends and at other times, so I think people would welcome that. And I think in terms of the art and cultural community, they'll appreciate just that the city is trying to help and trying to get involved. And I think that, you know, if you spend a little time on it, you'll find out that there's probably a lot of different ideas that you could have. There's all different kinds of art. So, for instance, you could have musicians playing downtown on the weekends, you know, maybe 2 or 3 in a different one every weekend. You know, musicians have been struggling too, because venues are closed and there's not as many places to play. So that, you know, that's just one idea. But I think that if you brainstorm, you'll find that there's lots of ways that you can impact them. And, you know, bringing people downtown or reintroducing arts and cultural events, I think also helps the restaurants, it helps the stores that are downtown and everything else. So it all just sort of is intertwined. But arts and culture have a big, big impact, much bigger, I think, on the economy than anybody thought before this pandemic.
Thank you, sir. Councilor Mercy, anything else?
Let us not forget that every city and town has a city or town motto, and ours is art is the handmaid of human good. So it can't get any better than that. It's telling you right then and there. So I love your idea, Sarah, about when you go through the downtown and you see empty storefronts, if you just painted, let's say, a theme for the downtown, maybe it's the city of flowers, where you paint like daisies on one window or petunias on another. I think that's marvelous, so that you're not seeing an empty void, you're seeing beauty, you know? I think that's great, and we can't forget that it isn't just about art, it's about music and dance and culture, and that's all art. So this is something that I enjoy as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilor Mercier. Councilor Conway or Councilor Elliott? No? Councilor Samaras, anything else? Right. Senator Kennedy, do you have anything else to add before we adjourn?
I think that's it. You know, we're, if you need if you move forward with that idea and you need any help with it, we'd be glad to help out in any way that we can. And we'll send you that report. We'll send it to every member of the City Council. It's 79 pages, but it's excellent reading.
That would be great. Is that a report of the COVID-19 Cultural Impact Commission?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. So yes, if you could send that to, you know, we can read it on our leisure time.
Yes.
Appreciate your time, Senator Kennedy and Sarah. Oh,
Can I just ask one more question?
yes, go ahead, Councilor Samaras.
Councilor Mercier really alluded to this, but when you talk about dealing with the empty storefronts at this point, maybe this is something that we could possibly kick off. Do you have any ideas, in other words, how we could maybe either secure some type of funds where we say to people, you know, if you, here are 10 stores that need to be, that are empty, you know, we'll select 10 artists that will paint, you know, give their paintings, and then maybe the theme is
House Bill
flowers.
2246 has money
Yeah.
on it.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a way that we could spend it,
Yeah,
right?
But, you know, but, Councilor Mercier, it's a good idea
Yes,
about
it's a
getting
wonderful-
something started right now. Any
I'm
thoughts?
just curious, the building owners on Merrimack Street, you know, some of the buildings need some paint. I mean, I don't know how that all works. I mean, I talk about this, I've been talking about it to a couple people actually, but how do you get them to paint their buildings? Or is there some grant monies or something we can get in order to help them, you know, get the paint and paint the outside of their buildings? I mean, a fresh paint just covers all sins. I mean, it makes a big difference, you know? You know,
I'll
and
tell
you can
I-
hire
I
artists to do the painting.
I think most councilors here can talk about development, you know, making a motion towards that point, but I think Councilor Noon
Right.
has a motion tonight.
I did, also, Councilor Mercier, through the last council meeting, there's a motion about trying to get the downtown alive again, and the storefront and all that. So my motion tonight is also talk about that as well, and looking for federal, state, and all kind of partner to help building owners to develop the upstairs. And maybe we ought to look at how we, you know, permitting that, because, you know, to do those work, you probably do need, because the code, you probably do need escalator, you know, so those elevator, I mean, there ought to be, we need to look at all, you know, way to try to address it, because if you leave it for the owner of the downtown to do those work, it's going to be not going to be done.
Waiting forever, yeah.
So we have to really, we understand that. I know the city has been really good at, you know, trying to promote downtown and helping downtown small businesses and so on. So we've done a lot as a city, as you
You
said,
have.
Sarah, is that we are ahead of other city and town in the Commonwealth. So, but we can do better if we come together doing this work. So, yeah, so. Councilor, Senator Kennedy, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I could, you'll recall that the Lieutenant Governor was here a couple of weeks ago to talk about economic development grants, and had a roundtable over at the Olympia restaurant. And I don't know if there's a grant specifically for that, but I'm sure that they would like that idea. I can't imagine that Lowell is the only community where the Central Business District needs a little sprucing up, and I think that that's kind of part of what they were focusing on.
Yeah.
Central Business District is extremely important to this city, and as all of you know, because they pay a tax rate that's twice as high as residents. So it's important that they stay viable and as vibrant as they can be.
Thank you. Thank you. Anything else, my fellow councilor? As a motion to adjourn?
Before you adjourn, if I could, Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to point out that I got a wheel missing from this chair, and I think this is Rodney Elliott's seat, so I just want to give him a heads up on this. I wouldn't want to see him topple over at the city council meeting later on.
Well, he know because he's chair, Senator, so.
Yes.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, James. Thank you, everyone, for being here this hearing to adjourn. Thank you.
Thank you.